Dun-dun-dun-dun. Welcome back to the N.A.P. It's been a long break. How you doing, Nerf herders? It has been a weird week for me, to say the very least. But it's also been a pretty weird week for America, actually. So I mean, a conflicting week. I'll put it that way, because July 4th celebrating America, and lately America hasn't exactly been a happy topic for people lately. But that being set aside, how was the break for you, Mr. Joshua Howell?
It was good. This is the first podcast in the second half of the year. So welcome to the 7th month of 2020. Well, let's see. Will it be any better than the first 6 months? I don't know. Will the second half be any better than the first half? Who knows?
I don't know. Well, given the events that we have to look forward to in the second half
I know.
of 2020, I don't know. I can't say.
Yeah. But I'm doing well. I've been busy at work. I decided to take a floating holiday, so I worked Friday and Monday, but had a chill weekend and gave my dog a lot of Benadryl to make it through the fireworks. But otherwise, it was good.
I had to kind of do the same thing. The fireworks. It was World War III for a brief period, and then I found out, like, I'm slightly distracted right now because as I told you before we started recording, I found out that the cat is on his way to the vet for eating a crap ton of ribbon, which for some reason I don't know how that was laying around the house, but yeah.
You have piles of ribbon around your house or what?
No, like Cece has, we have a wedding coming up that Cece is a bridesmaid in, and I actually happen to be the photographer for it at the same time. But she had a bachelorette party, and so she had a bunch of like decorations and stuff that she helped, like they helped decorate part of that and all that. So she had some leftover stuff hanging around the house. But as we have learned only once before, this is the rock salt. He just bolted. I don't know if you saw it. He seems fine. As we've learned before, there are some things that if you leave around the house, he will eat them in their entirety. And we have now found out that we've never had ribbon just laying around the house, and now we found out that ribbon is one of those things. And he was ready for it. I mean, he was ready to chow down. So yeah, he's going to be making a little trip to the vet. But
well, good luck with that.
Yeah, beyond that, things are going okay, I would say.
Yeah.
Had some interesting news today. I'm excited to get talking about it though. So where do you want to start, my good sir?
Well, I figured, I know you got a lot of lightning round stuff. Why don't we get through a couple of the main stories, and then we can get through it. We can get to those.
Couldn't find all of them, but yeah.
I wanted to talk about Charlize Theron. Theron. I always pronounce her name incorrectly. She's got a new movie coming out on Netflix called The Old Guard. Have you seen the trailers for that?
I have not.
It looks pretty good. It looks like she is part of a group of, I don't know, killers or just people that are like slightly immortal, and she's been around since like the Crusades. And eventually they don't heal as much as they used to, but as long as they don't get hurt too much, then they live for hundreds of years. And it looks like an interesting trailer. And of course, there's been a lot of interviews with her in the weeks leading up to it. And recently she had an interview, and they asked her, because you've seen Mad Max Fury Road, right?
I have indeed.
But she was obviously the kind of the star of that. I mean, she was more interesting than Mad Max. I think most people walked away thinking that was a Furiosa movie.
I mean, just look at her. She's badass.
Yeah, she was awesome. My wife did a cosplay of her. She was great. So it was announced that George Miller, the guy that has done all the Mad Max movies, was going to do a Furiosa movie. And Charlize Theron is a force to be reckoned with. I think a lot of people really love her as an actress. But unfortunately, it's now been learned that that movie will be a prequel and will feature a Furiosa in her 20s and not Charlize Theron. And so in a recent interview, they basically asked her how she felt about that. And she said, among other things, it was a tough pill to swallow. A little heartbreaking for sure. I really love that character, and I'm so grateful that I had a part in creating her. Obviously, I would love to see that story continue. Um, but sadly, she won't be a part of that. So it's kind of sad, man. I mean, I can't remember who they cast as the young version of her, but honestly, I'd rather see another movie with Charlize in it than a prequel. I mean, I don't think a prequel is really that necessary.
I mean, that's where it kind of comes down to: is it the character that people are more invested in, or is it like the universe that she would be in that they're going to be more invested in? Obviously, in this particular situation, it's going to be the character, because that
Mm-hmm.
was the first thing that people started talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
would you have the character as she is without Charlize Theron? Probably not. Like,
Yeah.
probably not. So this seems like a really dumb move to me. It's like, first of all, I don't know that I really need a prequel to this. That would be like, honestly, I would like to see something that's like closer to the era in which her character originated, and it's at least as far as the films or the film went. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that. Um, I don't know. Like, do we need her origin story or anything like that? Like, do we need that information? No, I don't think that we do.
I
Like,
mean, sure,
she was an
there's
awesome character on her own, like standing on her own 2 feet. Do we need like an entire back history? No, I don't think so.
right. I mean, we don't have to be hand fed everything. I think when we were
No.
introduced to her, clearly she was what was her title? Impurator or something like that. She was
Hmm.
like, what was it? Impurator for Furiosa. She was like a driver.
Yeah.
She had her own steering wheel. She was like, she had made it up in the ranks. She had lost her arm at some point. We didn't need to be told. Like, they didn't have a flashback sequence in the movie for us to know who she was and what her motivations were. That's why the movie was so great. And so I really don't need to know the origin of her metal arm. I don't need to know why she paints her forehead black, or why she cut her hair, or how she came to be in that thing. I would much rather know what she does now that, they killed that dude. Does she stay at the colony? Does she go somewhere else? I mean, I could see a person making the argument of, well, for a while there, Mad Max was known as Mel Gibson, and people didn't think you could have another Mad Max film without Mel Gibson. Well, it's been a long time since Mad Max 3.
Oh,
And I think the movie was written well, that you really didn't need, Tom Hardy served the purpose well. But Mad Max Fury Road came out only a couple years ago, and she was the knockout character. I mean, she was the person that everybody was like, hell yes, that's why I went to see it again, was because of her. And it
she's the
just,
most recognizable character out of all of them. Like,
yeah,
I mean, aside from the main villain, whose name I only saw it once.
yeah,
Um, but like,
big big old dude.
as soon as I see her character, just in the preview screen that you've got up on our slideshow right now, like as soon as you see that, automatically know who it is.
Hmm.
Like, and there aren't a lot of other characters in the Mad Max thing that I would have thought that off at the top of my head. But she
Yeah.
was the character. If it wasn't Mad Max, it was her.
Well, and I feel for her because earlier in the interview, she said, let's see, she said a lot of women don't get a second chance in Hollywood, but many men make those movies and fail miserably. They get chance after chance after chance to go and explore that again. That doesn't necessarily always happen for women. Fury Road came a good decade after Eon Flux. Now, Eon Flux was, originally supposed to be like, oh my gosh, they're doing this epic movie based on, the cartoon or whatever. And I think most people know that that movie just failed. And she said, and there's always been a voice in the back of my head that still somewhat responds to that. I'm still influenced by that, and it's one thing that drives me. It's unfortunate that we feel like the opportunity will be taken away from us in a heartbeat if we don't succeed. But that is the truth. It's not a very forgiving genre when it comes to women. I'm guessing that she's talking about action movies and whatnot. But she came with this and she gave it her all, and she's definitely one of those actresses that really puts everything into her role. And she had Atomic Blonde after this, and I was like, I loved her as Furiosa. I didn't really care for Atomic Blonde, and I really don't want to see a young version of this. It's not. I mean, sure, I'd love to return to the universe that George Miller has created in the Mad Max movies, but yeah, it just doesn't excite me very much for a prequel movie about the character that I love, but I don't actually get to see the character that I love.
Yeah. Honestly, it's weird. If I wanted to play the devil's advocate for just that little bit, like I understand the director, or at least the team putting the movie together, not wanting to recast her for a character who is a much younger version of her, because as honestly, as ageless as Charlize Theron does look, I don't know that, like, actually no, with today's technology, I don't know why they couldn't just de-age her. Maybe it's outside of the budget or something like that. I don't know. Like, they wouldn't have to de-age her by much. They really wouldn't need to put that much effort into it, unless it's going to be a very dramatically different looking character, which obviously I would assume that it's going to be. Like, I assume it's going to be the movie that does explain why she cut her hair, or why she shaves her head, why she paints her head black. Like, I mean, yeah, I was trying to play the devil's advocate there, but honestly, with today's cinematic technology, I really don't know that it's worth it to really do that. And
But see,
Charlize
again,
Theron is, why 20s? Why not just be like mid 30s? She could pass for mid 30s easy.
I mean,
She could pass for
granted,
late 20s easy with some makeup.
to
Really wouldn't take much.
to
Just
that
give her the
point,
role.
the Black Widow movie looks like it's going pretty far back in time. I mean, what's his face looks a lot younger.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
what's his name? The general guy. But
Ross.
I just don't think we need a prequel. I mean,
No.
why do we need a prequel for this character? I mean, really, and it's also, doesn't that also kind of take away any sense of danger? Like, we know she's not going to die. It's a prequel, so what
Yeah.
real story could you build around her that would be compelling and intense when she doesn't die at the end?
Well, it doesn't have to be just about her not dying. I mean, because they kind of understand. I mean, it's one of those why prequels. Like, why is this person the way that she is? Which I would argue are kind of less compelling in and of themselves. I mean, yeah, you can tell an interesting story, but when you know the outcome,
Yeah. And
it
do you
does
really need to
take
know
away from it.
why?
Yeah, I
It's
think
already
part of
proven to be a good character.
part of the compelling part of her character is not knowing the answer to a lot of those questions.
Right.
It's kind of I go back to Star Wars. There were some certain things about the prequels that we just didn't need to see. Like, I don't need to know why Anakin turned. Like, it's pretty it was a nice part of his villainy of not knowing why he was the way that he was. Or it was an interesting thing about, we didn't need to know why Obi-Wan had sorry, my throat's really dry. It's just, there's a bunch of unanswered questions that don't need to be answered, because it continues to it leaves the character up on the pedestal that they're already at by not having the answers to them.
Sure.
You want to figure it out by watching the original source material, by watching her again in Mad Max Fury Road, to see if there's any hints.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, I just feel for Charlize. I think she sold that movie. I think people were most impressed by her in that movie, and it just seems like, oh, thanks for making us all that money. Thanks for being a badass. Now we're going to do a movie about your character, but we're not going to involve you at all, But I don't know. We'll see.
You helped bring her alive, but fuck off.
Right. Right. Maybe George Miller will come with something crazy cool, but at the moment I feel bad for her. So, but yeah. So the next story I want to talk about was something we all knew was coming, but it finally happened. What a while ago, Disney bought out Fox, and they've been bringing a bunch of content back under, or not back, but to Disney. So originally, Dark Horse had the Star Wars comics, and I have some of those Star Wars comics. In
Some of the
fact,
Marvel era Star Wars comics are pretty good too, though. So I mean, they didn't
yeah, this right
that
here is
didn't make me too terrible mad.
this right here is the number one Heir to the Empire comic from Dark Horse, and one of my favorite comics of all time. Dark Horse did amazing with Star Wars comics, and then they lost them to Disney. Then the next thing that they lost to Disney was Buffy. They were doing the Buffy, which I have all library editions. They've been doing that since season, what is that, season 6, I think it started on, or season 7. Basically, it started right after the show, and they kind of continued on with Joss Whedon's characters and the world that he built. And then when Disney bought out Fox, then they gained the rights to the Buffy comics. Well, technically, the rights to Aliens and Predator was also part of that package, and they're finally coming to collect. So, starting on January 1st, Disney will own the comic rights, the movie rights, the whatever rights to Aliens and Predator. And it's kind of sad for Dark Horse, because Dark Horse did a lot with these. These are a couple of the 30-year anniversary books that I have. These are each 30-year anniversary books. They've done a lot of stuff with the Aliens comics. Again, they picked up right after the original Alien and Aliens movies, way back 30 years ago. They did the same thing with Predator, and then they actually created the Aliens vs. Predator brand. Not the AvP crappy movies, but the epic ongoing comic book series that was Aliens versus Predator. They even had an Aliens versus Predator versus Terminator crossover at one point. But they've put decades of work into these comics, and now they're losing the rights to them, and kind of sad. I mean, they have other comics under their name, but this was one of their biggest brands for decades, and it's kind of sad to see them losing it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't privy to this. I didn't know that this was coming, but I mean, it sucks because this is it's another one of those franchises that Disney is snatching up, and it's like, well, what are they going to do with it now? Where's it going to go? I need to pay some more attention to Dark Horse comics. I gotta give them that, because there's a lot of stuff that as far as I know, Hellboy is still a Dark Horse property. I think they still make Hellboy comics.
Is it?
I'm not sure. I'm looking at their website here, and I see that they've got some Hellboy merchandise, but I don't know that they actually still own the franchise, or not own the franchise, but still have licensing rights to it.
Yeah.
They still produce the Umbrella Academy comics, which I got really stoked when the Netflix series was coming out. I got really stoked because I remember reading the comic, because I was a huge My Chemical Romance fan, and Gerard Way, the lead singer, put those out. And so I really do. I need to give more attention to and it's actually the 30th anniversary of Aliens versus Predator, the original comic series, according to the Dark Horse website. And so it's kind of a bad time to find out that that's coming over to Disney. It's part of that corporate consolidation that I just hate. Like Disney doesn't need to be in charge of that many stuff, of that many properties. And honestly, we've seen like different methods of the mediums being owned by separate entities. Like I think there's even some Marvel characters that they have the rights to in film, but they can't like do anything else with.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who they would be off the top of my head. Um oh man, there was one character who stuck out in my
Well, like,
mind.
I mean, Spider-Man is a classic,
Well, yeah,
Sony still
Spider-Man's
has
obviously one of
control.
them. But
Yeah.
that one's not necessarily what I'm talking about because they have like kind of like a half agreement with Sony
Mm-hmm.
as far as putting that all together.
Hulk is another one that people own
Hulk.
partial.
Hulk, yeah, they
Yeah,
can't like they can have him in their cinematic movies, but he can't have like his own because I think
right,
Universal still holds the I'm pretty sure it's Universal. Like
right.
honestly, is like would there have been so much harm in leaving this particular comic series to Dark Horse and letting them do what they want with it's like it's not like you're snatching
Or
up
at
like
least taking a cut. Like, I get it, you bought it, you want it,
license
but
it out.
yeah, I mean, these have always been R-rated properties, and anytime they've done a PG-13 version of the property, it sucked terribly. And
Shouldn't downgrade in that regard in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and we know Disney isn't going to put out R-rated stuff under the Disney name. They're going to put it off of one of their subsidiary companies. So why not
Yeah.
just work with Dark Horse to continue this? I don't even see them making an R-rated comic under Disney or Marvel. So why
No.
not just work out some type of agreement? By the way, you mentioned that 30-year. I've got the 30-year anniversary book that just came in the mail of Aliens versus Predator there.
There you go.
Um, I mean, these, they've, and especially that one because they came up with that. They got the Aliens comics and they got the Predator comics and then they created the Aliens versus Predator, which sounds kind of silly, but it's got over 3 decades worth of comics that they've built on there that are amazing and much better than the movies for sure. But I'll show you this statement that they put out because you were talking about what other properties they have. Um, they have currently they've got Stranger Things, The Witcher, Avatar, The
Yeah.
Last Airbender, Minecraft. Critical Role has been something that they've been developing more on the comic side. Um, but they said, what's next for Alien Predator comics after 30 years of publishing the greatest Aliens, Predator, and AvP stories in the Xenoverse? Disney will be pulling the publishing license from Dark Horse. As the newest owners of Fox, this is their right, of course. Dark Horse has been one of the longest standing and most successful of Fox's licensing partners for over the nearly 35 years we have worked with them. Our first Alien series was a smash success, moving away from the generic storylines common in film and television based titles and toward actual sequels to the original material, which is what they were, and that's why they were so well done. The success of Aliens led directly to another series based on Predator. The first series was the basis of the Predator film sequel, and the Warner's iconic first issue cover served as the inspiration for the poster. The natural extension of those licenses led Dark Horse to come up with the monster hit Aliens versus Predator, mixing the two franchises with a huge success with fans, and became one of the most successful series in the history of the direct market. So it's kind of sad to see that they're losing it. I mean, they're trying to put their best foot forward and in terms of dealing with it. But and I'm not necessarily bringing out the story to say shame on you, Disney, for taking it. I get it. You bought it. You own it. But if you're not really going to do anything with it, or at least not anything right away, why not just let this, this company
Or if you're
keep
gonna
it
water
for
it
you?
down.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's my bigger fear that they're gonna continue on with it, but they're gonna water it down. And
And
like
we've
when you
seen
have
watered down versions of it. The
yeah, it
Alien, the
hasn't worked.
AvP movies were
Like
PG-13.
it
That was
didn't work.
terrible. That recent Predators movie, what was it just? Was it just called Predator or The Predator? It was terrible. It was
I
so
think
bad.
so. I hadn't seen it. I was
It's
just like,
so bad.
okay, I'm glad I
The
hadn't seen
la-
it
the
then.
last good movie, the last good Predators movie was called Predators, and it had what's his name from The Pianist in it, and that was an R-rated movie. Also had Lawrence Fishburne in it. It was amazing. That was an R-rated Predators movie. That was
Adrian
good.
Adrian
Adrian
Brody?
Brody. Yeah, you're right. He was awesome in it. He got jacked for that movie. I don't know if you remember that, but he got jacked. He was showing off his muscles.
I was used to him being quite skinny. That was a little bit of a shock for me because he's like critically skinny. Like he's a small dude.
Yeah. But anyway, shout out to Dark Horse for 30 years of awesomeness. I was thinking on doing maybe a little side video of all the Dark Horse comics that I have because I've got a lot of them. I'm a huge fan of Dark Horse. They've done a lot of amazing stuff. And it's just sad to see them losing another property that it's not like they just had it for a couple years and now it's changing the guard again. They've had it for 30 years and they've made the most of it. And there's a reason comics that aren't Superman and Batman, they don't last for 30 years.
No.
There's a reason why the Alien and Predators and Alien versus Predators, as silly as that sounds, there's a reason why those comics still exist. And it's because Dark Horse, made them possible.
And if you want to call them that, some of the more successful, one of the most successful comic book movie universes. Like, if you really want to go there.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to go there, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they had a hand in that, and they even kind of, I don't know if you noticed, but they even kind of called out the universes, the movies, saying, storylines weren't that great. We were the forefront of the storylines for the comics, but yeah. So anyway, the only other story I had to talk about was, this was yours actually, Stargirl.
Well, I wanted to bring it up because we have a fan who is a little angry that we hadn't talked about it before. I will say that I still haven't gotten a chance to check out the show. I've actually been on call for work, so I haven't really had much time to sit down since Friday started. But it was an interesting note to find out that, first of all, it got renewed for a second season, which is good news. That gives me a little bit more of an inclination to check out the first season, knowing that it's going to continue. So now I know that, first of all, that it's kind of a spoiler, I guess, because that, kind of how the show is going to go on, or at least there's going to be something to continue on to. But the interesting thing was to find out that this show originated on the DC Universe app. So that was the DC streaming service. That was the only place you could see it. Well, it's been renewed for a second season, but it's not going on to the streaming service. It is actually going to be airing on the CW. Now, do you view this as a good thing or a bad thing? Are we thinking that the streaming service is going away, especially with HBO Max kind of coming in and having like a lot of the stuff that as far as the DC universe is concerned, like almost everything? Or do you view it as like kind of a good thing, be like, hey, it's upgrading from only on streaming services, and like a big cable network was like, hey, this is good enough to show on our network, let's pop it on there? What do you think?
I feel this is a downgrade for sure. I feel it's bad news for the show and bad news for the DC universe. First of all, I let go of my DC universe app membership a long time ago. I used it for Doom Patrol and the first season of Teen Titans and a couple other things, but then I let go of it. And I got really excited when HBO Max was coming out because it was called the place where all Warner Brothers material was going to be, and that's how they sold it to people. That's how they advertised it. So I do reviews for another site every once in a while. I do written reviews for them, and I did a review a year ago for Harley Quinn, and they were like, "Hey, Harley Quinn season 2 just ended. Do you mind benching it and writing a review?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I went on HBO Max, because if you scroll down on HBO Max, it does say DC. And I clicked on DC and Harley Quinn wasn't there. It's only on the DC Universe app. So it's another reason why right after I saw that was the case, I canceled my HBO Max account too, because apparently it's not what it is. It's not everything Warner Brothers. But as far as this instance, I compared this to Doom Patrol, because when they put out the trailer for Doom Patrol, they called it an HBO Max original. And that second season is premiering on HBO Max. It'll also be on DC Universe, but it will be from episode 1 of that second season on HBO Max. So to see that this show is not only leaving the DC Universe, which I've heard rumors will be gone by the end of the year, which doesn't surprise me. But to see that this is not only leaving that, but it's not going to HBO Max, it's going to the CW, which is not even a cable channel. It's a regular TV channel for most people. That doesn't sound good for me, man. It doesn't at all. And I mean, it's similar to the CW bringing over Supergirl when CBS didn't want to pay for it anymore. Granted, I haven't seen the show, so I don't know if it's terrible or not. But I mean, it sounds like a downgrade to me that HBO Max doesn't even want it. They're sending it to regular TV.
So I'm thinking in the opposite vein, actually. I am thinking that, so because it's kind of like fitting into that universe with, it sounds like they're trying to fit it in with the universe of Arrow and
Well, they'll
Flash,
write it in for
Supergirl,
sure.
and all that. Like
Yeah.
they want to combine those universes and they want to pull in some more of those viewers. And the CW saw the potential in it and we're like, hey, yeah, that this doesn't sound like it's going to be a waste of our money. And they had good reception of the show. I actually need to. Normally, I'm looking up properties and reviews, but I'm not on top of it this time around. So right now, 81% of Google users are on board with this one. It's got a 4.3 out of 5 stars. Rotten Tomatoes is putting it at 91% certified fresh and 82% audience score. So I knew the reviews were good. I just didn't know how good. I feel like they are taking this opportunity to put it onto a mainstream cable network because let's admit it, unless your advertising is insanely good, you're not going to reach as much of an audience on an exclusive streaming service or an exclusive cable channel as you will on a mainstream network. And so they're trying to pull it in. They're trying to pull. I feel like they're just trying to pull in some more viewers. They're like, hey, this show deserves more viewers. We're going to put it on a mainstream cable network to where more eyes can get onto it. You're going to see commercials for it on that network all the time now. You're going to see commercials for it on other networks because other networks advertise on other channels all the time. I feel like this is a like they're like, hey, we've hit gold here. Like let's boost up our viewership on the CW because I mean the Arrow community, myself included, like aren't happy with the way that the Arrow series was going. And the Flash, I feel is I'm 50-50 on the Flash, honestly. Some of the stuff has been good. I've liked some of the stuff. I've disliked some of it as well at about the same rate as far as the Flash is concerned. And Supergirl, I haven't checked out at all because honestly, it didn't get me excited. I don't know what it was, but Supergirl just didn't get me excited. But yeah, the more I look into Stargirl, I'm like, hey, this is looking pretty good, and it's also based in Nebraska. Like her character is actually in Nebraska, so it's like, all right,
Oh, really?
yeah,
I
let's see
didn't
how that
even know
goes.
that. Well, that
Yeah, it's a
shows how
place
much I've
called.
seen the show.
It's gonna
But
be it's a place called Blue Valley. It's not a real place in Nebraska, at least as far as I'm concerned. Maybe Blue Valley is real. I don't
is
know.
it surrounded by corn? Uh,
uh,
the show? Because
okay, so
you
I
know how
type in
Hollywood loves to show Nebraska. It's just corn and cows. No
looks
cities at all.
25 miles southwest of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, is the very small town of Blue Valley, Nebraska. It's one of
Oh,
the
wow.
many
Okay.
fictional DC comic. Okay, so it's a fictional DC comic town.
hmm
I was gonna say,
Well,
I was
hey,
like,
man.
I hadn't heard of Blue Valley, Nebraska before, and I've been here a while, so that kind of shook me. But yeah, no,
Those ratings.
I feel like this is a strong move for them. I feel like they're gonna get more viewership, and then like who knows? They air the main show on the CW for maybe like two seasons, maybe not
Mhm.
just season two. Bolster up the viewership, and then put the backlog on put the full show as a backlog onto HBO Max or the DC stream, or probably not the DC streaming site. They're probably not going to put it back on there, but they take the backlog, they put that on HBO Max, and then pull all the other content onto pull future content onto HBO Max after HBO Max proves that it can actually hold a viewership base. Because we've talked about this before. I feel like HBO Max is just messy. It's like we've got too many different HBO streaming services that are available to us right now. Like,
Mhm.
and they didn't. Really don't feel like they did a good job of explaining it right out of the gate or giving people a reason to want to jump into that. I think that this is a better move than putting it on HBO Max.
I mean, we've also talked about how streaming services are constantly looking for new and exclusive content, and
Yeah,
that's really, especially these newer ones that don't have the legacy of Netflix. They need all the help they can get. And now, I mean, I am more solid in my point of view on this now that you've told me those reviews, because if you're telling me that people liked this show, why would they water it down for the Arrowverse? I mean, they're going to have to integrate, they're going to have to put it into the Arrowverse, which apparently initially they didn't plan on it because they released it on DC Universe app. They're
I don't. We
the
don't know they're gonna do
CW for
that.
the most part, for most people, is free. You can get it with the right antenna. You don't. It's not part of a cable package, so I don't see them making money off of it like they would if they made it an HBO Max thing. And then to me, it's just like if Disney Plus moved one of their shows to the Disney Channel on cable, like that seems like a downgrade to me, moving it to cable and not moving it to your exclusive streaming service. I mean, especially if DC Universe is going under, HBO Max needs everything they can. And it seems like they're already doing that with Doom Patrol and how heavily they're advertising that Harley Quinn is about to launch on HBO Max later this month. So they're advertising properties like that moving from DC Universe to HBO Max. But this is one that isn't making that move. I mean, I can see your point of view. I still feel like it's a downgrade, but I guess we'll see what happens. It's going to go one or the other. So I can't stop looking at this guy. I don't know who he is, but he looks like Tom Holland. I know it's not Tom Holland. Doesn't that look like Tom Holland dressing up as Damian Wayne or something like that?
A little bit.
That's all I
A
can
little
see.
bit.
But we'll see. Maybe I'll watch this show now because honestly, I've seen a trailer for it and I was just like, well, I'll get around to watching it sometime. But if it's bringing down those kind of numbers as far as ratings, maybe I'll go check it out.
I
I'll
mean,
see why not.
I got to give it a shot just because it's DC and like
Sure.
I love that universe. I want to see what they do with it. And
And
honestly,
this,
if it's getting reviews this good, I'd like that to continue and not get my
yeah,
heart broken, kind of like Arrow did. But
especially for a character that I've heard nothing about.
I think
Like I wasn't a
she's a
huge.
fairly new character actually. So
Well, there you go. I mean, good on him for bringing down those reviews.
no kidding. I saw
Do
you
you want
flash
to
the
do some
light.
lightning rounds?
I saw you flash it. It's
Mm-hmm.
time for the lightning round. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I don't have a lot. We're gonna keep it kind of simple, especially since we've still got Rebels season 1 to talk about.
Yeah.
But so I'm gonna save that one for last. We had some report. There are some reports that are going around out there that Xbox is reportedly interested in acquiring the Warner Brothers gaming division, which would give them access to a lot of stuff. So studios like Rocksteady and NetherRealm, which is going to be Rocksteady, should sound familiar to you because of the Batman Arkham series.
Right.
But you're also going to have access to the Mortal Kombat games, Harry Potter, the Suicide Squad game that is supposedly was rumored. I don't think we've seen much on it. The Lego games, which are enormous, absolutely enormous. The Lord of the Rings franchises, which are again huge. But there's a lot of different franchises that are going to be there. So what they're going to do with it, I don't know. I don't know. But obviously Xbox is going to have the materials to do quite a bit with those franchises. But it kind of leads into sort of what we were talking about as far as the DC universe and what Warner Brothers is doing with that. And it's like, is there something going on at Warner Brothers here to where they're, I don't want to say liquidating, but like what necessarily do we think is going on at this point to where now we've got easily their, like, obviously the biggest franchises for their video games are now looking to be up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Reportedly,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's been confirmed yet. This is just a rumor, but noted the report echoes a aforementioned report from June, noting that the deal could cost anywhere from $2 to $4 billion, billion with a B. This means that if a deal is reached between this price range, it could be Xbox's most expensive acquisition, outdoing its acquisition of Mojang and Minecraft. According to the report, and this is the report is coming from the way of The Information, which I don't know how reputable that site's going to be, but it's on the back of a report from last month claiming that AT&T was looking to offload WB Games with Activision, EA, and Take-Two all expressing interest in striking a deal. But it notes that according to the report, Warner Brothers' parent company AT&T is interested in offloading WB Games to help reduce its $154 billion of debt. Yeah, it's I feel like this is not completely unrelated to their film department as well. Like, I feel like something's going on. So I thought that was an interesting little snippet.
Yeah, well, because I've been watching this as well. AT&T, so AT&T acquired Time Warner back in a couple years ago in 2018, and back then their debt was 109 billion. That was I'm sorry, no, they bought Time Warner for 109 billion back in 2018. And at that point it had 165 billion in debt. So now, according to CNBC, and I'm looking at an article from last month, they said that they're closer to $200 billion in debt now. So, and they're only, it's crazy that we're
Fuck that.
saying billion with a B. And they're talking about selling Warner Brothers gaming division for about 4 billion. Now, when
Yeah,
you hear the number 4 billion, that is a lot of money. But when compared to 200 billion in debt, that's
pocket
not
change.
a lot of money. Yeah. So they're going to, even if they sold this for their desired price of 4 billion, they'd still be 196 billion in debt. That is crazy. It's
It
so
makes me
crazy.
it makes me sad that is what they're valuing their gaming division at. Like
Yeah.
that really, like, because I feel like those games did a lot better than that. Like, I feel like they've done better to deserve better than that.
I mean, Mortal
Honestly, there
Kombat's
hasn't.
been doing amazing lately. They
Oh,
just keep on putting something out.
Mortal Kombat does excellent.
Yeah.
The Lego Star Wars games, the Lego I don't know if the Lego Star Wars how much, like, there's got to be some sort of an agreement there as far as what all is involved as far as licensing the Star Wars side of things. But
Mm-hmm.
the Lego Lord of the Rings series, I know it didn't do quite as good, but the Lego Batman stuff, holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah,
Like,
they've had a lot of Lego properties go big. The Lego Harry Potter movie games were pretty big too.
yeah, they did pretty good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like I feel like the valuation is a little bit low. I wouldn't be surprised if that goes up. Maybe it's just starting around 2 to 4 billion. I mean, like it said, they had a couple other interested parties, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe we're looking at a future bidding war. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting little snippet.
And I know it's business related, but it still shocks me. Like, I could not imagine selling something for $2 to $4 billion and still being, you know, more than
plus
50 times
150
that in
billion
debt.
dollars in debt. Like,
It's so crazy. So
it's a
crazy.
little rough.
Yeah.
Um, and then this is a super quick one, but apparently, like, it came out that apparently John Krasinski, or Jim from The Office, wore a wig undetected on The Office for a good portion of season 3.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
And I was
I don't
just
remember
like,
why. Did it say why?
yeah, he had a film role that he had to cut his hair for, and so he would.
What was the film role?
I can't remember what the exact name of it was. I gotta
Because
find
I
it
can only
here.
kind of remember his film roles after The Office. Not really like he did 13 Hours, the Benghazi
Leatherheads.
movie. Leatherheads?
Leatherheads.
Wow, I've never heard of that movie. But
So they
hey,
made a wig. I'm wondering if it's like around like the season where he got a haircut, or around that part of the season where he got a haircut for the interviews for the higher position and all that.
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Or maybe
Well,
beforehand.
nobody noticed it, so good job,
Yeah,
wig
nobody
department.
noticed. Did a great job. I've seen that
Hair and
show.
makeup. You should
I've
have
seen
won
that
the Emmys
entire
that
show.
year.
Like I've seen that entire show several times. I never would have thought that he was wearing a wig.
Yeah.
So I mean,
That should be
super
how the
sneaky.
hair and makeup people win Emmys. They'd just be like, "Did you notice it was a wig? No? Give us the award." That
Yeah.
should be it.
There was also there was some talk about my favorite streaming service, Quibi. So an article,
Yep.
yeah, an article came out recently. It's from Vulture. Is anyone watching Quibi? Question mark. The streaming platform raised $1.75 billion and secured a roster of A-list talent, but it can't get audiences to notice. And I haven't noticed. Like, I mean, I've noticed, but I've like specifically like tried not to watch the content that's on there because I'm just like, none of it was really compelling to me. Um,
Why was this
the
suddenly streaming? Or why was this suddenly trending?
Well, so there's been a bunch of stuff that was kind of coming. It's not trending anymore. It kind of got sneaky in there, and I wonder if Quibi like threw some money at Twitter, be like, "Hey, can you knock this off?" Because a lot of the mentions around it were talking about how more people are like really excited about hearing bad news about Quibi than are hearing about good news. There was a poll that went out that said after their Super Bowl ads went out, like because they were heavy on the Super Bowl side of things. They spent a lot of money on Super Bowl advertising. They jumped up to like number 3 on the Apple Store, but apparently about 70% of people thought that they were a food delivering service, which makes sense considering considering Quibi is short for Quick Bites.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear that name, like that doesn't sound like a streaming service to me. Like it really doesn't. Quick Bites absolutely sounds like a food delivery service. And so like there was just a bunch of stuff going around on Twitter about people shitting on it, and I was like, this is my chance because I have been shitting on Quibi for a little while now, especially on this show. And I just I don't know, like the comment the content that was being put out, it was just like, oh, it wasn't terribly exciting. But honestly, like I should give it a better chance. Like I should really give it a better chance. But like, yeah, it was trending on Twitter, and most of the talk that was going on about it was pretty much just crapping on it.
Yeah,
And
well, I remember reading a now granted, I just saw a trailer for The Most Dangerous Game, which is a
yeah,
show on there with
I think that was
Liam
part of why
Neeson.
I think that was part of why it blew up too, is that
Yeah.
they had some more stuff that they were trying to push out there.
But I read an article maybe a month and a half ago, that I could have swore they said that the creators had lost close to $1 billion. And the creator mainly said that the reason they've lost so much money is because this was built on young people who took the taxi to work and rode the elevators up to their floor. And he envisioned these type of hardworking individuals wouldn't have time to watch regular shows. So he wanted to give them a show that they could watch in the taxi cab, or they could watch in the elevator ride up. And he attributed their lack of success to the fact that everybody was staying home and working, and that now people didn't need short form content, that they could watch long form content all they want. So the fact that people had more time to watch content was his reasoning for why they weren't watching his content.
Yeah.
But this TechCrunch article, recent TechCrunch article, says that Quibi is trying to raise another $1 billion. And what they're looking to do now is pick up shows from cable companies that the cable companies don't want and convert them to the Quibi format. He says, look at what Netflix did with the hit You, which it is a hit show that originally started on Lifetime, and then Netflix picked it up, and now it's a huge hit at Netflix. And I think that's a kind of I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Netflix
A
picks
good
up things
point.
all the time from cable, but they don't turn it into 5-minute shorts. They turn
Yeah.
it into longer, usually more edgier content because they don't have the rules of a cable show. So I don't know what TV show you would want saved from, TNT and converted into a 5-minute, short, but I guess that's what they're trying to do now.
Well, the interesting point that I saw here was something that a user on Twitter had pointed out. He's quoting the article. It says, as of early July, over 5 million phones had downloaded the Quibi app. Of those, 1.5 million had registered to use it.
So a fifth.
Honestly, and you think about like 1.5 million, that's nothing. Like that I mean, I'm not saying that we're getting like huge numbers. I'm not saying that in comparison we're any better, but like 1.5 million out of
Paying people depends on what they're paying.
well, with the amount of money that they put into it, only getting 1.5 million people to watch after that, and that's if they are watching all of the content.
True.
How do you
True.
know if they how do you know they've jumped in just to see the one part of the one show that was advertised to them that was actually appealing? Because
True.
they're obviously trying to reach a very wide audience. I mean, people who are going in there to watch Judge Chrissy Teigen probably aren't going to be the same people who are going to want to watch the Most Dangerous Game. Like you're talking about conflicting crowds here, and especially considering the money that went in, I'm just like, that's not a great return. That's less than like for the $2 billion that they put in there. That's pennies on the user that they got back.
Well,
Like,
and in comparison, we were just talking about HBO Max. Quibi's their first day downloads for Quibi, 300,000 people downloaded on the first day. I know you just mentioned 5 million. That's over time. First
well,
day,
that's
300.
as of early July, so I mean
Right.
that's quite a few months of time.
Sure. 300,000 people download Quibi on the first day. HBO Max, 87,000. So, I mean, not even a third of the people downloaded HBO Max that they did for Quibi. So, I mean,
Well,
I
and
guess,
HBO Max is struggling too, but at the same
yeah,
time, you also had like HBO Max also already had other streaming services up and
sure,
live. You're
sure. And you
dealing
got
with
to take
Quibi
that
with like a
into
brand
account.
new thing.
They might not even have needed to download it. It could have just converted like it did mine. So you got to take that into account. But I
HBO
mean,
Max also just kind of showed up like that. Like I didn't
yeah,
see an ad during every single ad break for the Super Bowl
right.
for HBO Max like it did for Quibi. Like,
Yeah, I
and
remember
that's
those
not
ads,
cheap
and they were
airtime.
effing annoying. They were
Oh, they're
so annoying.
terrible.
But yeah, can you imagine? Like, I've always hearing about the astronomical numbers to pay for one ad spot, let alone
Millions. We're talking
so
tens of
many.
millions of dollars for 30 seconds of airtime
Right.
on the
And
Super
they
Bowl.
did it like sometimes there was multiple in one ad break. It was like, I mean, I got to give it to them. Props for putting a shit ton of money into your advertising, but and
Yeah.
I guess you got to roll the dice when you're going up against other companies, but maybe it'll pay off, maybe it won't, but I guess they're trying to get more money, so it means they're not bankrupt yet. So,
They're giving it a shot.
mhm.
I don't know. I
I'm
got
not going to
annoyed
pay
with
for it.
I got annoyed with Quibi from the beginning. Simply like it didn't have anything to do with the content that they were going to be putting out. It had nothing to do with that. It was simply because I had first heard about it on the during the Super Bowl, and the ads annoyed the living shit out of me.
They
Like
really did.
they were so annoying. Like all the ads for Quibi would show, like they'd show up on YouTube. They showed up on all sorts of stuff, and it was just like, come on, you guys are beating me over the head with this thing.
I mean, I
And
guess that means they were memorable, but
yeah,
that's all you could say. Not memorable for a good reason, but I can't remember any other commercials that came out this year for the Super Bowl.
uh, I think it's time to talk Star Wars because I didn't really. No, I'm kidding. We've got
I
to
was
talk
gonna
about
say, there's no way you're gonna
you.
skip that.
Like, we got to talk about Kanye trying to run for president. Well, not even trying. Like it's confirmed. He's entered his. I don't know if he's. I don't know what all you got to do. I think you got to like officially register or something. Like you got to pay some amount to like file or something. I don't remember. There's some official behind the scenes shit that you got to do in order to make it work. But yeah. What are your thoughts?
Uh, Yeah, I.
So, do you remember back in 2016 when he announced that he was going to run in
Yeah, he
2020?
said he was gonna do it. Yeah,
Yeah, like,
he
I
said
mean,
it.
nobody's surprised, but it's like, why now, dude? Like, why now? What I predict, like I said, I was talking to Cece about this last night because she and I had brought it up, and I said, well, if Kanye West runs for president, Trump is going to win.
Yeah,
And
and there's a lot of theories to suggest that that might be the case,
it's
and
like,
that might be the purpose.
because yeah, it might be because you've got people who, first of all, Hillary lost because she pissed off so much of because she and the DNC pissed off so much of the Democratic base by doing what they did with Bernie and pretty much every other candidate, actually, like, and not even being secretive about it. Like, they found out that it was being rigged pretty quick,
Hmm.
pissing them off, and also being like incredibly unqualified and overall like not a great person. Um,
Hmm.
those aren't I'm not going to get any deeper into that, but she pissed off a lot of people, and so did the DNC, and so Democratic voters didn't really turn up in droves in order to vote for her. And
Right.
but they also thought, it was like, well, Donald Trump isn't going to win. I was like, it'll be fine, and lo and behold, he fucking won. Well, now we've got Biden, who, as part of the Democratic Party, has pissed off a lot of like not Democrats that you're seeing on cable news anyway. like
Hmm.
like the popular Democrats are touting him as the best thing to happen, but I ain't feeling it. I'm not feeling it. Um, and so that same level of animosity with your regular Democratic voter is existent again. And now you've got Kanye, who's going to take a good chunk of who's going to, unfortunately, he's going to take a good chunk of votes away, probably from both sides. Maybe not as much from Trump, but still going to see people voting. You're going to see people writing him in or voting for him on whatever ticket he can actually get himself on, because he can't put himself on the Republican ticket, can't put himself
Hmm.
on the Democratic ticket. So he's going to have to
Hmm.
register as one of the other parties, which I don't know if those primaries are already up. I don't know too much of the details as too far as how he's going to end up on the ballot, or if it's just going to be a write-in situation. I think at this point he has to be a write-in, but
Hmm.
that's going to take votes away from somebody.
Hmm.
And right now, Dems are angry. Republicans are up in arms to make sure Trump stays in there. And now you got Kanye who's throwing his hat in the ring. Be interesting to see what happens.
Well, because I mean, here's the thing: it is super hard to beat an incumbent
oh,
candidate.
yes, it is. Yes,
Super
it is.
hard. The only way you can really beat him is if everybody goes for the other candidate, you know. But if you start spreading your votes between multiple candidates, it's almost assured win for the incumbent.
Yeah.
So there's the theory, because when's the last time you saw this man without this hat on? You know, when's the last time you saw him talk crap about Trump? For the longest time, every picture of him was with Trump. Trump was his best friend. He was
Yep.
hanging out in the White House. So there's a theory
He's
that
making him more money. So.
just trying to do this so that they would, you know, the votes will be more scarce, and then less people will vote for Biden, and they'll throw their vote his way. But there's no way he's going to get more than Trump. But any vote that's not for Biden is a vote for Trump. That's basically how it boils down to. Now, I don't agree. There's some people who are like, well, he's just trying to steal all the black votes from Biden. I don't agree. I don't think that's the case. I think that's kind of a little racist to suggest that most
Yeah,
black,
it absolutely is.
especially since a lot of black people have called him out for being such buddy buddy with Trump. I don't think people are very happy about that. And I think a lot of people also have been calling him out for his gospel track that he's been on, his last two albums and his church and everything. I think a lot of people don't feel like he's a genuine person. So I don't necessarily see all the black people suddenly taking their votes from Biden to vote for Kanye. But the strategy in itself has some theory in that any vote that doesn't go to Biden, if it goes to Kanye or any other person, is basically a vote for Trump. And it almost ensures his win. It does ensure his win that much more. And I don't want to give Fox News any praise at all. But the other day they were talking about this and they were like, does he know what it means to run for president? Because you can't just say, hey, I'm running for president, and then you show up. There's so much financial stuff that you have to let go of. There's so much like rules that you can't make certain kinds of money while you're running for, there's all these things that has his personal business he wouldn't be able to do even while he's running for president. Granted, Trump got around it, but
didn't even get around it. He was just like, yeah, I'm not doing any of that.
Yeah. So I guess that's
trust?
your answer for that. But there's a lot more to running for president than just saying, hey guys, I'm running, vote for me on the day of, and we'll see how deep this dives into. There's some people that thinks this is just kind of a ploy to promote his newest album or whatever, but we'll see in the coming weeks. Because, man, I mean, if all things still go as planned, the election is coming up.
Yeah.
Way to wait till the last second to announce this, but yeah, it's coming up.
It's gonna be an interesting 2020. Like, honestly,
Can you imagine seeing him at a debate?
Oh man,
like Biden, Trump, Kanye, the debate. I would pay to see that. I would pay more money to see that than a UFC fight with people I don't know about.
Let's we've already hit an hour. Let's go ahead and jump into like the main meat of our episode today. I didn't realize what time it was until just now, but
yeah.
I watched a show and did it in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Or at least caught up, like watched the first season and got into it in a good time. I haven't seen a single episode of season 2, but I watched all of season 1 in a very promptly manner.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you thought first, because when you were describing it to me originally, you kind of, I don't want to say that you dogged on season 1 a little bit, but you did say that season 1 was awful slow and didn't get you terribly excited for the series.
Yes, I didn't care for season 1. I think the best parts of this show are in season 2 and 3, which I won't spoil. But and granted, again, I always say this with a caveat of I got to binge Clone Wars 1 through 7 in one go. I didn't have to wait several years. The people that watched this initially, this started in 2014. This was the sequel to season 6 of Clone Wars. So people went into this without a season 7 of Clone Wars. And so I went into this having watched all of Clone Wars as they've currently said through the final season. And I thought that the first season of this was lackluster. I thought that it dragged at some points. I thought that it was too fast at some points. A lot of the same criticisms I have for Rey, I have for this dude, in that he is clearly untrained, but holy shit, is he powerful super quick. And then on top of that, everybody has an attitude in this show, and I was having a really hard time. Everybody down to the droid has an attitude, but then the one person that I expected to be like the calm and civil dude was the Jedi, and he has an attitude for most of the first season. And for a while, granted, by the end of the season, I got used to it, but for the first half, the first 2/3 of the season, I was having a hard time connecting with this crew of people.
So I was directly the opposite. I
you.
was actually quite into the dynamic that they were trying to put up, because they were very much showing. So like I viewed it this way. So you've got Kanan is part of an order that has died. At this point in the season, we don't know what his relationship was with the Jedi Council, so we don't really know like whether or not he had good feelings about it. There were a lot of Jedi who, after the purge, felt like it was a long time coming and it was something that needed to happen. There were plenty of
Mhm.
Jedi before the Purge who are like, the Jedi are not going in the direction that they need to be. I'm not happy
Mhm.
with I'm not happy with the situation. I feel like Kanan probably falls into that category to where he might not have been 100% in line with the Jedi ideals. And then when it falls apart, also feel like he might have fallen out of it. Like, I don't think he's a master. I don't think it's ever mentioned if he was a Jedi master or not, but I don't think he got to that level. I don't think he is a matured Jedi at this point. Um, he's very well acted though. Freddie Prince Jr. actually did a really good job with his character.
Mhm.
I was surprised to learn that Freddie Prince Jr. was his voice actor. Actually, I didn't recognize the voice at all. Um, also, I feel like Ezra is an interesting character in that I feel like he is actually going in the direction that I would have liked Rey to end up in, where we find out who his parents are like right away, and they're not like crazy powerful Jedi or anything like that, or at least I'm
Mhm.
assuming that they're not. It They didn't allude to that. It sounds like his parents were like regular, like they were rebels. They were like, we're regular citizens, but fuck the Empire. This is bullshit.
Mhm.
They were freedom initiators, I guess is what you'd want to call it. And then again, I haven't seen any of the seasons, so I'm making guesses as to where it's going.
Mhm.
Which does kind of lead to one of my complaints about the series is that it was incredibly predictable. Um,
Mhm.
there weren't really any real surprises as far as how things were going to go. Um, there's a lot of moments where you feel like, hey, they shouldn't have gotten out of that. This Inquisitor is like super powerful. This Jedi is incredibly rusty. How is this happening? Like, how are they surviving all these encounters? Um,
Mhm.
it's just like there's certainly some questions there, but it's also a show that is clearly meant for kids. It showed on Disney XD is where the show airs. So, well, aired. I think it's finished. Um,
It is finished.
it is finished. Okay. Um, but it aired on Disney XD. It's aimed for a younger crowd, so we're not going to get like an incredible amount of depth behind these characters. That like they're trying to entertain kids, which given that fact, I feel like this was a very entertaining show to watch. I liked Chopper. I also found out that Dave Filoni did the voice acting for Chopper,
Mhm.
which is great. I think first of all, it's the first droid that I've seen who's as much of a dick as Chopper actually is, and I think it's great. You're dealing with with a part of like, I'm really sad that I didn't get into Rebels sooner because it's an element of Star Wars that I really like. It is the criminal underworld. It
Mhm.
In this season they are not they're not really part of the Rebel Alliance. It's like,
Mhm.
yes, they are against the Empire, but they're more out for themselves. It's not so
Sure.
much about defeating the Empire as it is about them getting ahead while making the Empire mad at the same time.
Mhm.
And so you're dealing with a lot of criminal elements. They're dealing with some seedy underworld people. They're dealing with first of all, they've got an ex uh Imperial with them. Like Sabine was going through the academy and she bailed out. We also find out at that point that the Imperial Academy was on Mandalore, so they're training Mandalorians. Um,
And once again, you have another Mandalorian who constantly takes off her helmet. I mean, I again,
well, we've got it's
I haven't
again.
watched a lot of these or read a lot of these other content, but the majority of the on-screen content I've seen, most Mandalorians take their helmets off all the time.
Again, you've got two different things here as far as Mandalorians are concerned. You've got Mandalorians who are described as people who are from the planet of Mandalore, but you've
Mhm.
also got the creed of Mandalorian, which was explained in the Mandalorian series on Disney Plus. It's like
Yeah.
you've got some who are like, we're following the true creed of the Mandalorian, which some Mandalorians as a part of Death Watch followed. You
Mhm.
never saw them with their helmets off. Some of them you did. Some of them
Yeah, what's
had,
her name with her helmet off all the time?
yeah,
The
but
sister of the woman that
I'm
Obi-Wan.
talking characters who didn't get names in
Well,
Death
yeah.
Watch.
Well,
Um,
sure.
like if you really want to get down to brass tacks, it's what it
Yeah.
comes down to. You've also got I don't we don't need to go into it. I also really like Ezra's collection that he's doing, where he's collecting Imperial helmets and Imperial wear.
That
It's
is
like, you
kind of
know what?
fun.
It's neat. It's neat,
Mhm.
and they're building like an interesting relationship between this crew and this kid who a majority of the crew considered a street rat for a little while. Like him and the Lasat, whose name I always forget.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the character list here. Give me just a second. Zeb, Garazeb
Yeah.
Aurelios. I really like their dynamic. Like, I like the whole, because it's like it seems like a troubled sibling relationship for some reason. They're even sharing a room. It's like, yeah, it's like he's showing as the aggressive dickhead big brother who also still
Mm-hmm.
cares, and I think that's an interesting thing, especially for young kids who are like, I get picked on by my brother all the time. Here's this dynamic. It reminds me of my relationship with my brother. Oh, but they still like really care about each other. It's like
Yeah. And for a
they're
creature we haven't seen a lot of, I really liked
yeah.
him as a member of the crew instead of like another Wookiee or whatever.
There's a Lasat who plays a prominent character in Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah. Um, and so like that was my first introduction to that race.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and yeah, it's just I was really into the series. Like I'm ready to watch season 2 as soon as I get like spare time to where I'm not like trying to work on something else. But yeah, I was digging it. Like
I mean, I didn't not like all of it. I just thought that the beginning was a little abrupt, and I didn't by the time the ending came around, the final few episodes, and some of the things like with when Ezra went undercover to the Stormtrooper Academy, I liked that
I
stuff.
liked that a lot. That
That
was
was
great.
really cool. They even showed like the X-Men, room that was in Clone Wars
Yeah.
almost. There was this the whatever the Clone Wars arc where Obi-Wan took over that other guy's identity and they had to go in that room and do all those things. They kind of had that same kind of danger room set up at the Stormtrooper Academy, which was interesting. When they started bringing in things about the Inquisitors, I thought that was cool.
Yep.
And Tarkin showed up, and I even liked the other bad guy. What's his name? Agent Callus. I thought he was a neat bad guy, and I could tell that more was coming for him. Yeah, I mean, there was definitely good things about it, but I agree with you. It had a tone of this is more for kids, um, with Disney XD. But I will say that I feel like they had to have been strategic with that, because the tone of this season and the tone of the other 2 seasons, because there's 3 seasons of this show, it gets to the level of Clone Wars. Like maybe this was just a
Yeah.
soft open for them, but Dave Filoni went back to his tone of Clone Wars, and there are heavy connections between this show and Clone Wars in the next 2 seasons that I can't wait to talk to you about. But it definitely gets pretty heavy in the final 2 seasons.
I especially liked the way that they ended it. Where because like the Inquisitor in this one I wasn't a super fan of. Like I said, like how is he this powerful and he's also getting like beat by a kid with a slingshot wrist rock, or like an actual
Yeah,
wrist rocket basically.
that was some of the stuff I didn't like. Yeah.
um but yeah, I'm glad that they kind of got rid of him. They're like, hey, he's dead. um
That kind of reminded me of like Ray being able to do hand on hand and basically beat Kylo Ren in her first showdown with him, when
yeah,
she's barely held a lightsaber in all of her life, and yet she's able to take him down. But yeah, I kind of felt that way.
to be fair, Ezra did get beaten in that fight.
He did.
um
Hmm.
so
He held his
like
ground for a lot, but yeah.
he did, but like also, I mean, having a lightsaber isn't that different from any other like handheld weapon. It's
Hmm.
just as far as like the technique that you would need to
But
be able to use.
it was always told to us this is the weapon of the Jedi, meaning that the
Yep.
Jedi know how best to use it. But speaking of lightsabers, this poster is kind of deceiving, because this almost looks like a regular lightsaber. But I wanted to get
Yeah.
your thoughts on the design in Rebels, because it's a little different than Clone Wars.
So the twiggy looking lightsaber
Hmm.
didn't didn't hit me right when I first saw it, but honestly, I kind of just grew to ignore it as an
Mm.
issue for me. Like I was able to overlook it pretty quick. Um, it yeah. After a while, I was just like, whatever. Like it's more about
Weird
the story than that part. It's
aesthetic.
it's it's weird. It's weird to get used to. I'm really liking like what they're doing with the lightsabers though, because they're definitely going like with the Inquisitor's lightsaber design where it's on like the spinning
Yeah. Mm.
reticle. And like I had seen that before because like I said, I played Fallen Order before this, and so that's not a unique design. The you see that in the Inquisitors in the trailers for the game.
Mhm.
So I knew about those for a while. I really like Ezra's lightsaber that he ends up building. Oh, which is really cool. Like
A little blaster on it or something.
yeah, he's got a little stun gun on it, which I thought was really neat.
Mhm.
And then Kanan, who's got an interesting method of having a lightsaber that he can disassemble, so it does not look too conspicuous on his person while he's carrying it around.
Yeah,
Um,
that was smart,
I was like
especially
that was
the
a neat
target.
little touch. Like so, I mean, I like what they're doing there. Also, with Zeb's weapon, the Royal Guard uh rifle, uh,
Mhm.
also staff that he was able to use. I like it. It's interesting. They're going into like different technology. We're dealing with a world that we don't get to see quite enough of. We're dealing with the criminal underworld. We're seeing a lot more of it now in these last few years, but well, several years because we were dealing with it slightly in Clone Wars. But as far as like the cinematic universe, they don't touch on it nearly enough. The Mandalorian was like the first bit of it, and they really didn't even get into it too much there. Um, I like this kind of content, and I was into it. Like I I don't really have too much more to go into on the show because, like you said, like it is kind of lacking in a lot of ways. But as far as entertainment value goes, I was able to watch through it and I wasn't disappointed with any of it. I was just like, oh, that could have been better, but I wouldn't even really call it disappointment. It was just like, I understand. Like
Mhm.
they're going for a different crowd. I'm if I liked season one, and knowing that things like really pick up through the next few seasons, I'm like really excited to continue at this point.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, and I'm double checking before I ask you because I don't want to spoil it if it's not the case. Were there any characters in season one that came over from Clone Wars? Can you remember any?
Ahsoka makes her appearance in the finale episode,
Oh,
and
does she?
so does Darth Vader. So, but yeah, in the last episode, she is revealed as Ahsoka was Fulcrum the entire time. Uh,
Hmm.
so that was the code name that she gave. So an adult Ahsoka showed up, and then Grand Moff Tarkin also decides that because the Inquisitor ended up sucking, he's gonna bring in fucking Vader, which is
Hmm.
essentially like I was like, oh, this pair of twos didn't beat you. Here's a fucking royal flush, bitch. Like, like really be like really going from like 0 to 100 as far as all this is
Hmm.
concerned. But yeah, I knew Vader was gonna make an appearance in this show because that's been spoiled for me before. So I mean
Sure.
that wasn't shocking at all. But yeah, like, it's just like, oh okay.
I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if Ahsoka was in the first season or not. So
Yeah.
that's what did you think of her appearance?
I mean it was a little weird, but we're
Hmm.
also dealing with I believe this is 15 years
Hmm.
after the
Hmm.
Clone Wars, so we're dealing with a more mature Ahsoka, and given that she's in the rebellion, who knows, maybe she's not as well fed. That might account for why she's looking a little bit slimmer in the face. That was
Sure.
really what it was, because it was just her face. Everything else in her design was fine, but it was
Yeah.
just how narrow her face went when I'm used to seeing it kind of like
Right.
almost baby face, really is
Yeah.
what I would have considered it. But
She's
yeah,
not incredibly unrecognizable, but yeah.
no, you recognize her like right away. But yeah, it was just her facial features that kind of threw me for a second. But then I'm
Hmm.
like, she's grown up. She's gonna look different. She grew into her face. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Was Hondo in the first season?
No,
The pirate?
thanks.
He wasn't? Are you
No,
sure?
no.
Oh. Well, I'm sorry.
Honestly, I'm not shocked that he's coming back because we're dealing with that criminal underworld. So of course he was going to be in there. Um,
Yeah.
there were
I mean,
several
Lando
moments.
was in the first season, though,
Yeah,
right?
Lando was in the first season.
That was interesting.
Um, honestly, I would have expected Hondo to show up at some point, and there were several times where I thought he was like when they had some moments where it was like, oh, I got to meet up with this person, or
Hmm.
I've got this. Honestly, when Zeb was playing Pazak, or they're playing, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's Pazak in this universe, but when it was Lando, I
Hmm.
expected that to be Hondo at first until I heard the voice.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, he's gambling with Hondo, or they're doing some weird pirate shit with Hondo or something. Like I'm surprised Hondo did not show up in the first season. But
Well, I'm sorry to spoil that a bit, but I'm
well, no, it's
glad
all
I
right.
didn't spoil Ahsoka for you. But I feel like Ahsoka was a bigger reveal than Hondo.
Well, I knew Ahsoka was going to be in the show because that was spoiled for me as well around the same time
Hmm.
that Vader was spoiled. That was a
Yeah.
YouTube clip that got recommended in our in the Nerf Herders channel. Is actually a fight between her and Vader. So I was like, oh, okay, that's coming.
Hmm.
And I only
Well,
mention
there's a
that
lot.
because Rebels is an old show. It's not an
Yeah.
old show, but I'm probably the only person watching right now who hasn't seen it.
Oh, but that was me 2 months ago. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this is it's interesting that this was the sequel to Clone Wars. This was the first time you were seeing Ahsoka after season 5 of Clone Wars. So it's kind of interesting. I mean,
Well,
that
I mean, you saw you. I mean, at the time, yes.
at the time, yeah,
Um,
yeah. But now you've
yeah,
seen now you've seen season 7. So for those that watched this show when it came out, they kind of saw the future of Ahsoka, and then came back and saw the season 7 of Ahsoka. But well, I
and
mean, I'm glad you liked the first season, and maybe I'm just being a little more harsh on it because there were more memorable things that I remember from season 2 and 3 than season 1. But I can't wait for you to get into season 2 and 3 because there's a lot. It's not just that there are callbacks to Clone Wars; it's that there were genuine, really good moments that I felt that I was really glad to see.
well, I'm into it and I'm up for it. I I don't know if I really want to like. I kind of want to talk about like what my expectations are for season 2, but I don't want to talk about it because I feel like your reaction to it would reveal whether I'm right or wrong. But
Mm,
uh yeah, there are a lot of things that have been spoiled about the series for me already, but there was, and like I said, it was also pretty predictable. But
hmm.
there was a lot of stuff that showed up that I wasn't necessarily expecting, and some like really interesting stuff. I'm excited to see the next few seasons, so I'm definitely stoked.
Well,
But
it's all about the journey too. Even if you've seen
yeah,
a
absolutely.
screenshot from a scene, you don't know what it took to get there and stuff like that.
No,
And some of the
no,
best
not
parts of
necessarily.
this is the storytelling. So, yeah.
I'm excited for more. I'm happy to be back. I'm glad that we're going live again. Um, I want to make a mention to those who are listening to this on the audio only version very late because I have been extremely far behind on those. It's been kind of a conflict for the audio only side of things because we are such a young channel, and we do have, and we are very new as far as the content that we're producing.
Hmm.
Like spreading it out on multiple different platforms is kind of making it hard to kind of sort of determine like what our audience is, how you guys are reacting to everything. And so the audio versions of our podcast are actually going to stop. Um, this will be the last episode for a while. If unless I get absolute virulent opposition to that, the audio only is going to stop to kind of give me a chance because first of all, I do a lot outside of this podcast. Um, and so it's going to give me like I'm already incredibly behind on it, and it's like it's filling up my backlog. But as far as I'm trying to avoid burnout for one thing, by producing all that extra content. But I want to make some room in my schedule for some other stuff to bring you guys because we really enjoy the video side of this thing. I think you and me, Josh, both. As soon as we did like the first video version of the N.A.P, we were like, okay, yeah, sold. We're gonna keep doing this.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
and I think we've had a lot more fun doing it on video So I think it makes more sense to like really continue to press on that. Um, so for now, the audio only versions, if you're watching this now and you're wondering why the audio only versions haven't been coming out, it's because I'm incredibly far behind on them with everything else that I've got going on. And I'm also pretty scatterbrained. So when I do have spare time, I forget that they're even there. So yeah, the audio only versions are going to stop, but we are going to push that into more video content for you guys. I also did some test streams on our Twitch channel, which you can find at twitch.com/nerdherdersassemble, to where if you're into the gaming side of things that I was doing here on YouTube, that's going to find a new home over on Twitch. So if you're interested in that, you can follow us over there on Twitch. And we've also got a Patreon that we're going to be promoting here before too terrible long, and some exclusive content that we'll be throwing out there. So keep your eyes open for that. If you are really into being a Nerf herder and really are into assembling with us every time we get together, Patreon will definitely have some exciting exclusives for you.
Yeah, on that note, I mean, the main reason I wanted to do Patreon is just because we have a little more freedoms to do things there. You know, like there's been a couple times like Dick Tracy just came out with a big anniversary, and I kind of wanted to do a reaction to Dick Tracy without having to worry about YouTube algorithms flagging it. Same way with Independence Day. I kind of really wanted to do a reaction to that. A lot of my like the Gantz O review and reaction. A lot of those anime stuff, especially the newer ones that people have been suggesting for the I don't know anime segment, would work better over there on Patreon because we could do things over there without YouTube's restrictions. Not to say that we want to move away from YouTube, but Patreon is just it's more open. I think we could have a little more freedoms to do things, and we could also do more things that people are actually, you know, suggesting. So not only would you be giving to Nerf herders, but you could, you know, you could give with a request, and we could fulfill that request. So that's really why I'm excited to do that. Not really just to go along with everybody else and making a Patreon to make it. You know, I think it's more just because there's content that I could really see us doing, and we've actually already talked about it. We've made a list of things that we want to do. So it's just a matter of finding the time to do it.
And we're not really pushing for the money side either. Like we're, as far as like subscription costs, we're talking pocket change here. Because it's like we're a small channel. It's not about the money for us at this point. It's really for the enjoyment. But it would also be nice to be able to cover some of the subscription costs that we do have to produce content. I mean, just for the background music, the StreamYard subscription, the editing software that I use for the other videos that we end up doing. Like there's a lot of costs that end up going into stuff like this. And so it would be nice if that was in there, but that's not the main goal. We just want to have another place to where people who are like super devoted do get that little bit extra. They do get that. I'll call it special treatment. And it's like, yeah, if you're willing to throw some money our way, we're absolutely going to try and throw some exclusives your way. I will say that the videos that at least that I produce for Patreon will just be Patreon first. And will come out on the YouTube and the other public platforms much later, but like we're talking early access for stuff. Because
some of the things I would do might just end up being on YouTube in more edited and less long form stuff. We'd have to edit it down, but yeah, there's always benefits to being a part of Patreon, and sometimes it is just the first access for sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of changes coming for Nerf Herders Assemble in a lot of good ways, and we're starting to see trailers popping up for more stuff. So we're going to start doing trailer reactions again here pretty soon on a more regular basis. Like I've still got the habit. I don't know if you do, but I've still got the habit of not watching a trailer as soon as I see it, because I'm like, my first instinct is like, oh, well, we might need to react to this. So while before I shake that habit, like we're probably going to jump back into trailer reactions again. So
well, they're finally starting to drop again. For the longest time finally they were like, well, we don't know when we're coming back, but it seems like they're dropping every other day now, so getting back into the norm of that. So
but
oh hey, before we end up, I wanted to give a shout out to Incredicon. I know we took a week off for the holiday, which was nice. Last week, Incredicon reached out to me and did a little interview for my books and everything. I've said that I've been missing that con experience to get out there and meet people. And Mike Lopez over there is doing this kind of weekly podcast called Incredit Chat, where he talks with people that would normally be at their Incredicon event or just other cons on the road. And so
Sweet.
had a nice conversation with him. Gave a shout out to Nerf Herders, and he started following us and gave some shout outs to us on his channel. So if you're coming over here or trying us out from watching those vids or seeing the shout outs over there, thanks for coming over here, and thanks for Mike Lopez and Incredicon for having me on.
Absolutely. Any shout outs that we can get are helpful. And I did watch for a little bit while you were live over on that. And yeah, I was digging your story about the debacle that was getting your book published. So
Yeah, I've told it enough now, but it's a story that always comes up. But yeah, it was a good chat. It was a good hour chat with him, and special appearances by his son over there. So it was a good time. But and they use StreamYard as well. It seems like everybody now is using StreamYard. So
I mean, it's an effective app, man. I'll tell you that. Like, it made our lives a hell of a lot easier. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys watching. There's a lot coming in store. Like, we're really excited to put this all together, and like some of it, like I want to talk about really bad, but I also don't want to say anything yet because I want it to be a surprise. But
Sure.
we've got a lot coming. But for now, I think that's going to wrap this one up. Hit the like button if you liked this video. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Leave a comment down below. Be a part of the conversation. We want to hear what you had in response to anything that we said. Also, leave a comment recommending something that you'd like for us to talk about on the next episode. If there's a topic in particular that we didn't dig into quite enough on the lightning round, maybe you want to hear us go on to a deep dive on that. But if that's the case, definitely hit the subscribe button so you don't have to worry about missing the next episode when it goes live, and hit the notification bell so you actually know when we go live immediately. And until then, we're going to see you guys later, Nerf Herders. Take it easy.
See ya.